Folks, this is my video on just the little things that you need to be mindful of before you get started on that exam one. Not a whole lot, but you may find it helpful. So here we go. I'm going to get rid of my face right now here. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to go through these things right here. This is some advice that I have. First of all, let's talk about the content. It's just over Unit 4 and Unit 5. So Unit 4 is about rational functions. This is where you have like a polynomial at the top, a polynomial at the bottom. You have these strange looking graphs. You have vertical asymptotes, you have zeros. A lot of domain, and range. These are important concepts. Then Unit 5, which I think is one of the most important units, where you're talking about an exponential function. Remember, x is in the power position. And then you have the logarithmic function, which is the inverse of the exponential. So anyway, it's just on these two units, so please make sure that your focus is on that. All right, what else do I want to talk about? Of course, I talked about the content. Now, the exercises. Really, this is the key to knowing the material. The lesson, the exercise, checking your answers, getting help when you need it, moving to the next step. And I will have to say that a lot of questions on the exam are somewhat similar to the quiz. So it's not like you're going to see every question a new question. Now, please keep in mind, this is pre-calculus. So you should expect to be challenged from time to time with a question or two on an exam. All right, let's see. I want to take a moment and talk briefly, just ever so briefly, about types of problems that you may want to focus in on your studies. My advice is study these first, before you try to go over everything. So one thing that I'll be looking for is doing the composite, like FOG, f of g of x. Make sure you know how to do that. How to solve a simple log equation. How to identify the zeros and vertical asymptotes of a rational expression. How to find the inverse of a rational expression. How to find domain of a log function. Don't forget your compound interest formula, okay? Compound monthly, compound quarterly. And remember that your percent is, if it's 5%, it's 0.05 that you're plugging in for R. Please use the formula properly. I think I explained that in my videos. And make sure when you're doing a money problem, you round to 2 places, and then you don't use the dollar sign in your answer. Another thing that I would try to figure out the x and y intercept of a rational function. Another thing would be a good straightforward exponential equation. Know how to solve for x. Of course, the advantage of those is you could check your answer to make sure you're right. E to a certain power. Make sure you use your calculator correctly on that. And then you're going to have a question for exponential equations where you're going to have to work it out longhand. I would leave your log statements and not try to round them to decimals in your equation work and just save that to the end. Of course, the advantage of this is you could check your answer before you put your answer in the answer blank, and that's a good thing. Remember, if we talk about finding the domain values of a rational function and the denominator is not factorable, you're going to have to use a quadratic formula or some other option. So please make sure you know what you're doing there. So remember, to find horizontal asymptotes, you remember the different conditions that I gave you. Go back and look at that video if you want to. Whether the powers on the top and the bottom and the leading term are the same, whether the top is higher or the bottom is higher. So please be mindful of that. Again, use your calculator to find the value of ln of a number. That should be very important. Use the properties of logs. I did a great video on that. I really want to encourage you to watch that. Don't forget how to use the change of base, so please be mindful of that. And remember, on the change of base, you could use ln or log. So I hope that works out. Now don't get a splinter if you use the log key on your calculator. So just keep that in mind. All right. So continuous compounding, make sure you know how to use that formula. Also, the process of verifying that two functions are inverses, make sure you know how to do that. And then, determining the horizontal asymptote again from a rational expression. So again, what I just said are things that you want to make sure that you know about, and you should have if you studied, did exercises, the quiz, and so forth. Now, another thing I want to point out to you is when you're taking your test, I have found it helpful for myself to just write these rational functions as some numerator over the denominator rather than the way they're given to you on your exam. Remember, if I don't say round, just plug your answer in there, okay? If it's rounded, please make sure you do that properly. Another thing that may help you is when you're trying to find like limits at infinity, if you're a little confused, you could use the table feature of your calculator. I did a video on that, so you may want to look at that. And another thing that I found helpful is I clear my calculator before I work each problem. That sort of keeps the slate clean, if you would. Now, regarding a formula sheet, if you want to have out that first page, page 1 formula sheet, I am okay. You could you could have that out, but there needs to be nothing on the back of that. There needs to be nothing written on that. And what I've done is I've experimented by putting that formula sheet on the computer while you're taking your test. So please read your directions on example 1, and you'll see that. So take full advantage of that. I'm experimenting with that to see if I can make that happen on your midterm, which would be a good thing. So, Mr. Staples, what should I study? You should study your notes. We have a couple students that are keeping a notebook. That is a great way to study. It's also a great way to put the course together. Also, in the unit discussions, I put some chapter tests. So I'll talk about that. Well, I'll talk about that right now. So if you look in the Unit 5, you have my videos over here, which I want to encourage you to watch them, okay, because there's a lot of stuff packed into them. These last are sort of enrichment ones, but you may get something out of that as well. Now notice the last time I had a section where I had review information for your exam. So here I'm going to have a link to this video. Then I have Chapter 3 review, Chapter 4 review. Now please, students, keep in mind Chapter 3 includes polynomial work. We're not going to have that on this test, be on the midterm. So only those related to rational expressions are ones you may want to look at. And then Chapter 4 is a lot of exponential. Matter of fact, all of Chapter 4, you want to see if you could do all of those problems. Students, you do not have to do these review problems. This is just extra work, extra study, but if you want to practice, it is available there. I would for sure just, make sure you go through this whole video. So that's something I'd like to encourage you to be aware of. Okay, so you should be doing this work. You could have scratch paper out, but no notes. No notes. Okay, please make that clear to yourself. And over here, when you're taking your test, you can check your answers, monitor your time. But if your answer works out, it's very likely you got the right answer. Read the questions carefully. Okay. You should not be in a rush and freeze. Now you may sort of have a mild panic emotional experience when that test pops up because hey, it's a test and it counts a lot. But you should calm down after a while. If you are in a freeze, that means you've not studied the class properly and you need to go back and get some help to be a better student on that. That would be my advice on that. All right, so those are some of the things on this little bit of notes here. I don't know if you can tell it, but I'm wearing my shirt I got at NASA down there in Florida, where failure is not an option. There are a lot of resources and there are a lot of tools that are available. You could spend a lot more time than you have doing this course. But that's on purpose so that you have different options to help you to be successful. So try to practice getting prepared for this exam too, and I wish you very well on it. And we'll look for you in the next report to the class. Good luck now.